Hello and welcome everybody to the Isotope event. My name is Paul Harlan and I am the course director for Project and Portfolio 3 in the audio production department online. And I'm so happy to have Isotope here. It's been a long time. I've been trying to get them back to the Full Sail campus. So anybody that's online, welcome. And it's been it's been a long time, like I said. And Dominic's. We're here to talk about VocalSynth, the new VocalSynth 2, and Ozone, say that again. We're here to talk about, what's it called, RX7, the new version of RX. And we have Dominic Delore with us today. Let's go. He goes by the name Dom, so we're going to go with Dom Delore. And he's been with the company a few years, and he's going to be filling you full of all kinds of great demos with these two wonderful products. And we've been friends with Isotope for about 10 years here at the Full Sail campus, and they've been very good to us and supplying us with great software that we've been able to show to you guys on campus and online. So with no further introduction or me stammering on here, let's hear it for Dom Delore from Isotope.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here from Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's where Isotope is based. Got a couple cool things to look at today. We're going to look at VocalSynth 2 and then RX. We're going to take a look at what can these things do to elevate your vocals in a song, clean instruments, and just polish that recording. We're going to look at some of the new features in RX7, like music rebalance. And we'll have probably some time for Q&A after. So yeah, we should probably get started. And the first thing we're going to look at is VocalSynth 2 in a hip hop session. So let's see, we got Pro Tools here. So a little background, this is a group from Boston called Still Gold. And they gave us their session. So looking here, let me unmute this. So they actually layered their main vocal the entire time with VocalSynth. And see if you can pick up on that. And now I'm going to mute it. Do you hear how? So you probably just heard the vocals just got thin, right? Like what happened? So we had this really full sound, and now they don't sound as powerful. So let's just isolate that a second and take a listen to what it's doing. So you can hear it's kind of like the some of that robo voice, talk box, vocoder, and it's all blended. VocalSynth lets us do all of that. So we're going to mute the printed track, and we're going to open up VocalSynth right here, and we're going to play it again, and we're going to bring it on in real time with a similar. I tried to recreate their patch a little, the best I could, and then we're going to set it clean, and we're going to rebuild it with you guys right here live. So I'm going to put it on. So you can hear it just adds so much body to the vocal track in general. So what we have here is we have a vocoder going, talkbox, and polyvox. And they're each represented by the display right here. We call it the anemone, which is really unique how the shapes kind of move with the vocal input. So let us start fresh. Let's go to default, and let's try building a vocal synth. So we're going to go down here. So we have a lot of controls. You can change the synth that's actually in each module, and you can change the LFO, the pitch, everything. So we're going to go in here. We're going to start with a preset. We're going to bring in a talk box, and you can adjust the volume here of each one, or you can use the sliders. Or turn on Polyvox, which is a more like human voice synthesizer. And let's say we don't want too much low end, let's take that down. So we can see like very quickly we can just get a creative sound, like very instantly. And it sounds like pretty good, and then we can listen to it in context. And if we think that's too much, we just pull the mix down. And again with it muted. So it just adds so much, and maybe you don't want it on the whole track. Maybe you just want to highlight the chorus. So you just, activate it for the chorus or something, or maybe specific words, or you just want that emphasis, that really hits home. And then, let me see here. There also is a tuning thing in here. This won't really be applicable for this presentation because they already pitch corrected the vocals. But you do have a pitch correction voicing. So if you can put this in a MIDI mode with a keyboard, and you can actually play the harmonies that you want to synthesize. So you would put it in poly mode, as shown here, and then you'd have your little MIDI keyboard, and you can play while you're singing, or do it after the fact. So that's a quick look at VocalSynth, and like I said, basically how you can use it to just add some punch and extra oomph to the overall sound of the vocals and context. And we can go back to that at the end for questions if anyone has. But I mainly want to be looking at RX today because there's so much cool stuff that's going on in there. So I'm just going to do a quick changeover and close Pro Tools and restart RX. And let's just make sure we have audio. Cool. So let's start here. So RX is our main editor application that is used for cleaning audio, restoring audio, removing noise. It's crazy powerful, to say the least. There's just about everything in there that you could want to do to fix an audio file. And we're going to start off with something that's not music-based, but something I think is really cool. And that is one of the newest features in RX-7 is a feature where we call it dialogue contouring. So it uses our pitch correction algorithm that was trained on dialogue, so you can go in and adjust inflections of the voice. So I just did it there. I went up at the end of my sentence. So let's say you don't want to go up at the end of a sentence, which usually makes things sound like a question or awkward. So here's an example.
The crowd saying or reacting to, so I want to include that in the write-up.
So let's go back.
The crowd saying.
So he says crowd saying, he's inflecting up in this interview. So what we can do is, we can go to dialogue contour here. Let me open it up. And what we're gonna do is we selected our area. So you grab your selection tool right here. We'll grab the vertical one. And we're going to select our area, and it's gonna pull up in this little editor window, and we can listen.
Saying.
So we hear him going up, and you can actually see it, funny enough. You can see it in the waveform in the spectrogram here. So RX converts everything that you bring in audio-wise into a two-dimensional spectrogram, so you can physically see it when you're editing the audio. So we can see it's actually lifting up in the voice there. And how do we know that's the voice? Well, if we grab our lasso tool here, RX actually lets you select anything in the waveform and audition it. So we can listen just to those frequencies, which is pretty wild. And, you can draw, you can do shapes, and listen.
Crowd.
Yeah, kind of use it for sound design if you wanted to. So let's go back. we're going to grab this, and we're going to put some points here and just try to bring it down a bit, kind of roll off the end of that sentence. And we'll smooth it out so it's not so robotic sounding. And let's listen.
The crowd saying or like react.
So you probably heard that like right away, like now he's just saying, not saying, and we can listen to it without it. So if we go back.
The crowd's saying,
and then we bypass.
Saying.
Right, it's going up.
Saying.
So we just smoothed his dialogue. We just completely changed the intonation, right, like that in a matter of seconds. So you can take like an awkward interview or smooth it out. So I just wanted to show that. I know it doesn't really pertain to music yet. We don't necessarily have things that we can do that with certain instruments, but I'm sure you could try if you wanted to. I don't know what that would do if you like bent a guitar up and like tried to like put it in there and pitch it down. Might be some fun results. Okay, our next example is a very loud clipped signal. So it's not clipping digitally, but it's clipped like analog recording of a guitar. Ooh, I'm sorry, that's really loud. Might have to just turn that down. Oh, let me see here. Sorry, this one's just really loud, and I don't have volume control on this output. So you can probably hear, sorry to make you jump in your seats, it's kind of distorted, it's too loud. So there's two ways we can do this. Traditionally, you would go to declip, and you would run our declip algorithm, which looks for the peaks here. You can see in the waveform up top. Anything above that line is distortion. But now in RX7, we have a new tool called Repair Assistant, where through our machine learning, we said, well, why don't we do that for you? And this is a great learning tool. That's what I really like about RX7, is you select what you want to clean up, and you hit Start Analysis. And it's going to scan this waveform for us, and it's going to look for clipping, clicks, hum, and just generic noise. And then once those are detected, it's going to give us a variety of presets down here where we can audition them, we can listen to them, and see if we like what it suggested as a change. And we can even open it as a module chain, which is really cool. So let's say like A, right? We can hit open as a chain, and we see it used one of our declick algorithms and declip algorithms. And you can even open up and look at the settings over here too. Like, what is it doing? So if you wanted to use this to say like learn how to do certain types of audio editing, Repair Assistant is a great like tool for that. One, it saves time, so you don't have to do all these manually yourself. But also if you want to learn what's happening in this clip, like what should I be looking for to fix? So we're going to pick version A. That sounds quieter. And we hit render. So we remove some clicks in clipping. So now if we listen, so now we don't have all that high-end breaking up and crackling that was there. And you can actually see the difference in the history. So we always give you a history window down here, so you can always go back if you need to. So if you look, see all those clicks and peaks in the waveform? So we can see that it took them right out, no problem. Moving on, we're going to look at dehum. So this is another one where we can use the Repair Assistant, or we can use our dehum module. So say you're at your friend's apartment, you're recording some guitar tracks, you got the perfect take, but their ground lift was broken or something, and now you got this hum in the recording. You probably feel that, like, that's like one of the worst feelings, right? Like you got that perfect take, and it feels like, you know, like an earthquake or something like under you. So we can go in here, and we can go back to the Repair Assistant, and we're going to start over, and we're going to see what it does. We're going to see what it finds. And look at that. It found it. It knows. And we're going to hit render. And now we can play it. And now we don't have that ground hum anymore. Which is like pretty crazy, right? Like, Because like, last thing you want to do is like send your friend a track and it sounds like that, right? They're gonna be like, are you alive? Like, did you get electrocuted? So there's an interesting thing right there as well. So there is a little low-end hum that is still there for some reason. Maybe something shifted, maybe they bumped something. So this will get into the next part a little bit, is we have an awesome tool. I kind of think of it as like the battleship of a lot of the tools in here. It's called Spectral Repair, and basically it allows you to hone in on an affected area and just make it disappear, like it never existed. So we can grab our lasso tool here, and we can hone in on that little thump we heard at the end of the processing, and we can solo it. So we hear something down there. Let's zoom in a little so maybe we don't get as much of the guitar tone in. We'll audition it. We don't want that. So we can go into here to attenuate, and what these settings here mean is, where is it looking above and below the signal to take that information to kind of close the gap? So we can set our weighting and our strength, and when we hit render, it's gone. And now when we play, now there's no thump. And we can see it, like physically, like it's gone, like as it was never in the recording. And to a greater effect, we can do that with other sounds, not just low end. So here we have a guitar track. Again, it's the perfect take. You need to wrap up your session, your studio time's up. But let's say there's some like squeaking going on that we don't want in a particular place. So let's look in here. So let's say we don't want that sound in this section. So we can go in here, we can highlight this, listen to it. Nice, right? If you pitch that up, you could probably make a laser sound out of that for like a sound design class. And we'll go back to Spectral Repair. And we probably don't need to get rid of everything so we don't hear like a gap in the audio. We'll bring this in a little closer, and we'll hit render. And we just took it down a little bit to first, so you can always go back. So let's see. Perfect, right? It's still there a little bit, but it's not, necessarily bothering our ears. But, if we wanted to go, we'd just undo. We could probably, really, yeah. Now you can see it's like faded. It's more in the background. You're not going to hear it. But it sounds a little more awkward because you actually hear the audio drop out. So what we did the first time would be best, where we're not trying to kill the thing, but just kind of attenuate it, bring the volume down of that area so we don't hear that squeak as much. Like that. Sounds natural, like it was played that way the first time. So that's some of the more technical tools that are in RX-7. Moving forward, let's look at in my opinion, one of the coolest new features is music rebalance. So what this does is we used our machine learning technology to train a computer to basically identify what are the drums, what is the bass, what are the vocals. So similar to how in one of our mixing products, Neutron, we have instrument identifiers which say, oh, that's a guitar track playing, oh, that's a vocal track, oh, that's a piano. We pushed it a little harder for RX so that we could actually start pulling those things out and listening to them on their own. So let's say you have a completed mix here. The computer's gone, it was stolen or something, but you have like a WAV file of someone's mix, but the vocals are just too low. The drums are loud, which maybe you want. Maybe you want to keep the drums up. So we can pull up music rebalance here, and we can listen to these 4 different separators any way we want. So let's start here, And let's just pull down everything and listen to the vocals. So you can see it's like trying to suppress everything else, and it's trying to keep the vocals up. So what we can do with that is we can boost the vocals here. We can lower the bass, let's say 2 decibels. We'll bring down the drums a few decibels, and we'll leave the backgrounds at about unity. And we can take a section here just for previewing. We can hit render. So now we have. So now the vocals are way more present in the mix. Now you're going to hear it jump back. So now if we went to this section, we can hear the difference. See how quiet they are? But if we go back here, they're at a more like appropriate level. So we just changed a finished mix completely with just the stereo print. No stems, no other files. There's also some really cool applications for this besides, let's say, rebalancing a mix. So depending on the track, you could really push it and create your own stems. That gets a little more tricky and takes a little trial and error, but with certain songs it is possible if you wanted to, pull everything out and say, let's just listen to the drums. So you can hear it's trying to suppress all the other sounds for the preview. Now the preview is going to be a little lower quality than the actual render, just because it's trying to do it in real time. But when you render it, there will be less artifacts and pops and clicks and stuff like that in the printed version. So this is great for band members. I told this to my roommate. If you have a song like you're in a cover band and you want to give your players parts, you could put in whatever the rock or pop song is and give your drummer the percussion part to learn. You could be like, here's the drum track. You could leave the other stuff maybe in the background a little bit, like the backing tracks here. But the drums are still forward. So right with that, you could just give them you got a gig this weekend, here's the drums, learn it. So depending on the track, like I said, you can definitely pull out different parts and try to make your own stems with it, which is always fun to do, just even from a learning standpoint. Let's bring up this a little bit for the bass. Let's go back here. Pretty cool, right? We can hear it's pulling the bass forward. There's some bleed in there on the other section from the vocal reverb and the guitars, but now, if you have nothing to do on your Friday night, now you can pull out your bass and you can learn the bass line to the song. So let's go here. We're going to look at another example of this. This one works really cool for doing different kind of, again, trying to create stems and listen to the parts. So we'll put a preset here, we'll do isolate the voice.
Yeah, it's hard to forget when you know the death of the stars.
And then we can bring everything back in.
Universe gets colder, a little bit closer to dark.
I just love that. I love that ability. Is you can just pull everything down with one click. So like this. So let's say you needed a backing track. You could just go in and you could do the inverse. You could leave everything else up, cut the vocals out. Now some of the reverb tails will probably still be present, but now you have an instant backing track. So now you can go do a cover of your song that you want to do. So I always love that. I think that one's like probably one of my favorite tools, just because it's cool just to take music you might have grown up with or something you're learning in a class and really dig into it more. Like, what's going on in the mix here? Like, what does the drums just sound like by themselves? Like, what was the production on them? And sometimes, you know, if you don't have the stems, it's kind of hard sometimes to hear those things. So you can use it, like I said, for your own use, for learning, to fix an actual print. So here's another fixing use case.
Whether it'll get any worse.
So this is from a live recording where they had a stage similar to about this size, and everyone was mic'd, and they were trying to do a live mix after. So they wanted to actually like better isolate everybody for the live mix. So this tool came in very helpful because you hear his guitar bleed just a little bit. So we don't want to remove all the guitar bleed because I don't want to like have any crazy phasing going on. But what we can do is we can lower it enough so we can pull up, where to go here, music rebalance. Leave the voice. We'll lower everything else. And we'll bring down the guitar, since it's the other in this case, just a little bit. And we'll select our part of the song. And we'll hit render. This way, when they're doing the live mix and redoing it afterwards in the studio, everything is just a little more cleaner, so you don't have too much cross-talking going on.
Whether it'll get any worse.
So you can hear it a little bit there when he's strumming, but now it's like almost gone entirely.
Well, I've been crushed before. I used to be 6'4".
And now we're getting to our next section. Did you hear those nice little thumps in there when he got close to the microphone? So, as you know, we call that the plosive effect that happens. So we actually have a wonderful little tool for that called deplosive, which helps get rid of the effects caused by plosives. So what we can do here is start with a preset. I always like starting with something just to give me an idea of like, what am I going after? And we're going to select this section here. And because I've looked at this many times, I can tell you, there they are right down there. If you ever look at a spectrogram and see stuff down there in that low end that's bright, that's usually going to be a problem. Unless you're doing sound design and you want like the sound of like the thud of a rocket ship taking off, well then by all means leave it. But in this case, we don't want that. So we're going to hit render. Gone. No plosives. And now we hear that again.
That's the ideal distraction when you know you are dying of thirst. Well, I've been crushed before. I used to be 6 foot.
And just to go back. We can hear those thumps again.
Thirst. Well, I've been crushed before. I used to be 6.
And then we can just get rid of them. No issues. Fixing the mix. And just to give another idea, if we want to go a little farther, you could actually go in, and this is the same song but looped, where I actually earlier today went and like cleaned out that guitar more in this section here. This is just the same section. So
talk about the weather.
Just silence there.
That's the ideal distraction.
And same thing, the guitar was lowered. So let's say you have that isolated vocal now. Now you can maybe go re-EQ it. Add like a nice little hall reverb, add some sparkle in there, and you'll have this live mix that sounds, you know, phenomenal when you release like the video or say from the concert. Let's see. Oh, we're doing good on time. So moving on here, we're gonna wrap up RX with some more vocal editing. Both looking at our repair assistant and some of the effects themselves. So let's take a listen to this vocal here.
sunrise sheds light on anticipant eyes. We sway to the rhythm, our gaze toward the skies.
So you can probably hear this is in dire need of de-essing. There's a lot of sibilance up there. We can actually see up here, I'd say probably between, this 6K and 15K region here, we can see it's fairly bright. You can kind of see them across the board. So what we can do, we can pull up, we have a DS tool, and let's try with this, smooth the high end. So what is that actually doing? It's, sorry, excuse me. It's looking at everything, fast attack and release. Spectral shaping helps smooth out. And this is a desired frequency band tilt and our cutoff frequency. So I might just raise that a little bit. And we can preview. You never have to commit to anything in RX. You can always go back. So let me go here. Let's look at the, where are we? Let's go back here.
The sunrise sheds light on
We can preview.
anticipant
So we can see the
eyes.
little module there when it's attenuating those sibilant.
To the rhythm, our gaze toward the sky.
So you're just starting to like calm it, you know? It's like saying, oh, let's go back. Though I did get a little ahead of myself here in fixing this. I noticed that I already had a work history started that I forgot to clear. So let's actually go back for what this track is. So another issue that comes up with vocal in any kind of recording a lot is bleed between instruments, kind of like the last track where we used music rebalance to help correct certain types of bleed. We actually have a debleed module up here, which works in a similar way where if you have, let's say, a click track, because after a while in the studio you need to turn the headphones up, and let's say the click from the headphones is feeding into your really awesome expensive condenser. So
the sunrise sheds light on anticipant eyes.
So if we listen here, here's the dry click printed, right? We all know this sound. So that's what's going on in here. We have this faintly in the background.
The sunrise sheds light on anticipant eyes.
So how would you get rid of that? So what you would do, all right, I already processed it earlier. So you can see in debleed, you can see those click points just disappear in the spectrogram. So what we can do when we open it is we need to find the source track. So that's the one we're on, is the active track, but the source would be this one, right? So what I did is I went to Pro Tools and I made sure the BPM was matching the BPM of the song, and I just printed a dry click track in Pro Tools and bounced that out. I brought that in here, and I select that. Let me see. And we hit learn, and we can see it learned what the clicks are. So now on our printed vocal track with the click, it's going to look for that. That's why when we hit render, we can see it just took them all out.
Sunrise sheds light on anticipant eyes. We sway to the.
And then we can put it back.
The sunrise sheds light
Click in there, but
on and
just so you can, that's what I love about RX. It's so visual. So we heard the plosive in there again. So in fixing this, we would go through, we would run deplosive again. We see them disappear from the low end. We would then go to the de-essing control here. And we would give this a pass over right here. And then we would listen again and see, do we hear anything else?
sunrise sheds light on anticipant eyes. We sway.
Let's say that breath just irks us for some reason that day. when we just don't want to hear the, like, oh, you know, and it's just really bugging us or something. So with RX-7, we improved our breath control module, and it actually comes with the full version of Nectar now as well. Let's see here, alphabetical order, up top. So we can go in here, similar to de-essing, we have some different, you know, presets that are gonna get us usually where we wanna go. So we wanna preserve dynamics. We don't wanna like make it too noticeable. And let's start with a little more sensitivity, and we're just gonna pull it down a little bit. So you can leave it, you don't have to reduce them all. I mean, if you wanna cut out the breath entirely, you can, but then there'll be more noticeable holes, let's say like in the audio. So let's pull it down a little bit, and let's hit render. Yeah, you can see the big offender there went away almost immediately in the middle. So now when we listen,
Tides, we sway to the
so now it just sounds a little more calmer. You don't hear that big gasp of air in there. Sometimes we want to hear that. Sometimes if we have like a song that requires like a lot of breath,
tides,
we want to hear that. But let's say this is going to be layered with some other backing vocals and some other vocal effects going on, where the vocal effects are going to start trying to correct or do stuff to that breath, and you hear that breath go like delay after it, and you're like, what do I do? So we can just iron it out.
We sway to.
Let's see here. Now this one is a good case for Repair Assistant, where we want to do some cleaning to multiple parts of the vocal. Let me find a section here.
Been running now. Larry Bird had his ass a Jordan had a Pippen. Wake me up when it's all over. I've been down, but don't fuss. Down in the cup.
So here we have an isolated hip hop vocal from Latrell James. He's a artist based out of Boston, and there's all sorts of stuff going on here. There's some plosive happening. There's some de-essing. So just like before, we're going to go through step by step. So the first thing, if we wanted to say like, well, how should I start attacking this? So we can select our region to edit, and we can go to Repair Assistant. And we're going to tell it, we'll start with music, and we'll let it analyze, and we're going to see, you know, just what are we looking for? Maybe there's nothing as wrong as what we're hearing. Maybe we're not seeing anything, but usually it always finds something. So I found some clipping, so that's always good. We don't want clipping vocals necessarily in our mix. And just as before, we can actually look. That's my favorite part about this, at the module chain. Like, what settings is it suggesting that we dive into? So I like to think of these as like low, medium, and high, where like they kind of get more aggressive in their processing suggestions. So this one's just asking for declipping. This one is actually wanting to do decrackle, which I think is funny. So there must be some, you know, other distortion going on in there that it wants to remove. And this one actually is using a different noise reduction algorithm called deconstruct, where it's basically deconstruct is an interesting module. So that one, let's pull it up here for you guys. So this tries to separate different types of noise. So it tries to take tonal signals or more musical sounding frequencies versus like white noise and hum and things that we don't want to hear, as well as transients. And it gives you like some sliders to kind of move those around, so you can kind of suppress across the whole spectrum what's going on. So it's interesting that it detected some background noise that we may or may not be hearing depending on our location. So I'm going to start with A, and I'm going to hit render. Great. So now it fixed some clips that it found. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go through like what I like to do when I'm editing a vocal. I always run a similar series of edits, which kind of helps get everything polished. So the first thing I like to do is I run declick. So declick just looks for any sort of pops and clicks and discontinuous patterns in the waveform. Stuff that just might, get amplified later or picked up in the wrong way. So this one's always fun because it gives you a counter of like how many things it found. So we're gonna hit render. And awesome. It found 2,728 little pops and clicks that maybe we didn't perceive. So that's always cool. So now they're gone. We don't have to think about them. And now let's go to our, where is it, deplosive? Because I heard one or two in there. And again, once you start working in RX, you start to see things, in a way that if you showed this to any like regular person, they might go like, oh, that looks pretty cool. It looks kind of like sci-fi and like, but like you look at that and you go like, oh, there's a problem. Right there. That's a problem. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna get rid of that. Awesome. Low-end problems, no more. And now let's go in here and let's say we just want a little smoothing over of the high end in case any S's really are just too sibilant for our setup. And you can always output them by themselves, which is cool. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. So you can select an area. A lot of our modules let you listen to what you're doing, which has some funny effects sometimes. So you can actually listen to.
Okay.
So now we're just listening to the S's that it's attenuating and pulling out. There's actually, you can do that with mouth declick as well, which is also kind of funny. And so if we put the sensitivity up here, and we can listen to, so mouth click is the declick algorithm, but trained just for those wonderful mouth sounds, like lip smacks and like that kind of stuff. So you can take those out of like recordings. So if we hit preview with the mouth clicks only.
Okay.
Pretty good, right? We briefly had a Twitter account where it just did that to videos. It might still be up there if you search mouthbiz on Twitter, where we told a computer to pull out internet videos and just repost them with nothing but mouth clicks. It's a good time. But that's what's so cool, because RX lets you see the audio and like literally touch it, right? Like I can go in here and touch the audio like this. Listening to those frequencies, like going and saying like, what lives in this space, right? Like what's going on there? So we'll run mouth declick because we have it open. And I don't think I ever ran our de-esser either. So let's run that. Oh, so see, I had a goof up. I left that on. So now I'll have nothing but the S's. So easy enough, we just hit undo. Yeah, you never have to worry about doing something wrong in RX. You can always go back. So now when we listen.
My luck been running out. Larry Bird had his ass a clover. Michael Jordan had a Pippen. Wake me up when it's all over. I've been
Sounds like it was recorded in a better space. We don't have any pops, clicks. The sibilance has been attenuated. There's no plosives. And now you can go and take that, bring it into Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton, whatever your DAW choice is, and finish your vocal production. So no matter what you do, it's going to help, clean up whatever, whether it's an instrument, a vocal, dialogue like we saw at the beginning. You can basically bring anything in there and just to look at it. And, let's say, Dom, I hate the color scheme. Well, we thought of that too. So we have a variety of colors. So if this is more your vibe, great. Maybe you like black and white, looks classic. Maybe you want to pretend you're working on the X-Files. Awesome. You can go green. So you have all these options in here. because certain things look different, right, under different light, different colors. So it's really cool to see, like, wow, like that's what vocals look like, right? Those purple highlights, those are all the vocal frequencies spaced out across the spectrum. So that pretty much wraps up my main presentation. So I would say if we want to do some Q&A or questions or certain things people want to see, I'd say let's dive into that for like the last 15 minutes or so. Or 20, however long we want to do. Yep, hold on, I think they're getting a microphone.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Great. Do you have any examples using the D-reverb?
Let's see, I don't know if I downloaded anything for D-reverb, but let's take a look. Let's see where we could do something with that. Let me look. I'm looking for, there's a guitar track there.
Sunrise.
No. I'm looking for a specific one. I think that live recording might work well.
The weather don't get any worse.
So let's go back to the initial state here, and let's listen to that.
That's the ideal distraction.
So we can hear there's a room there, but so there's two actually D-reverbs. There's a dialogue D-reverb, which is new to RX-7, and then there's regular D-reverb. So I apologize, I don't have like the best example for this, but I will show you. D-reverb goes in, and it's going to try and suppress the frequencies of the different reverb tails that are present in your recording. So we can actually learn the frequencies in this recording here. Create a profile. And we can see what it already did. It's saying there's a lot of low-end reflection and stuff going on, or low-mid, I should say, is the one it really pulled down. So if we listen,
that's the ideal distraction.
so it's a little,
when you know,
but you can hear it's trying to suppress, maybe a little too much, but that one is good for, I'd say, just general lowering reverb frequencies. So like, this room would be really cool to, get a recording of, and then kind of, not that it's like too echoey in here, but from up here I can hear my voice a little bouncing back. So that would be, a good application if you're like in a church recording is cool to play with as well. If you just want to like tame off that high end of the reverb, not so much you want to dim it or make it less sparkly. The newer one, dialogue D-reverb, this was trained with on our machine learning technology to do this better for the human voice. So let's say you have like an interview, kind of like what we're doing right now in a big environment, like a big box, and like you just want to have it attenuated, or you want to make it sound like it was a close microphone, right? And there's no gap. So this will go in and do a similar thing, but it's using our dialogue learning technology, where we trained the computer to identify what does the human voice sound like, similar to dialogue isolate, where it's saying, that's a human voice, I'm going to preserve it, basically. I don't know what it would do on here. I'm kind of curious, so why don't we experiment with some light reverb attenuation and see what it does. So you'll also notice I always pick advanced joint channel on all these. So these are just different separation algorithms that basically I think of them as like, this one's good for previewing, this one's a little more powerful, and like this is the best. But when you preview the best one, there's going to be more artifacts in the preview. Because again, your CPU is trying to do that in real time and be like, suppress the bad stuff and leave the good stuff up. So let's listen.
That's the ideal distraction when you know you are dying of thirst.
In this case, it's actually just trying to get rid of that whole room reflection. I think it's a little much for this, but you can hear that it changes the sound entirely to that. It sounds like he's talking almost. It's kind of changing, and we don't hear all the space of his voice anymore. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Cool. Do you have another question, or?
We do have some online questions for you, Dom. You haven't
Awesome.
had a chance to talk about post-production yet. Our online audience would like to know a little bit about restoring historic recordings,
Okay.
how it's done, and can you also talk a little bit about forensics, please?
Cool. I don't have examples per se for those two, but let me see here what we can do with, let's go to our intonation track. I mainly brought music examples for today, but let's look at this dialogue track right here.
The crowd saying or like reacting to, so I want to include that in the write-up.
So a lot of times with forensics, right? So we'll get, emails or stuff from like detectives, police stations, court cases to our customer care team, and they'll be like, "How do I help clean this?" And it's like, "Are you supposed to be sharing this with us?" And then obviously, yes, it's always yes. They got legal clearance to share it, but it's always just kind of funny. It's like listening to courtroom cases and stuff like that, where they want to clean the dialogue because someone might have muttered something under their breath and it could be like really important. So it's always interesting to see like dialogue, right, in RX, something like this. So with forensics, usually what they want to do is suppress the background noise and retain the dialogue. So we use dialogue isolate is the main tool for that. So this one is, again, like I think of it as like a battleship module in here. So you can set this thing so extreme that it's basically going to push everything that it doesn't identify as a human voice out completely and leave what it thinks is left. So if I do that, if I go in here and we set it up and we hit render, so we might want to run it a few times so you can see what it's doing. Not that this has a lot of background noise, but hopefully it helps clarify. You saw all the pauses get darker, meaning there's no audio there. It's literally erasing it. So if we go here, here's before, and you can see the light blue, the background noise in the recording. And after running dialogue isolate, it's like erasing it. It's basically saying, "Oh, you're not the human voice, goodbye." So that one is probably the most used for forensics, I'd say, just because it'll try to pull a voice out of anything. And funny enough, we've actually had a handful of cases of misidentification where not every other things can fall into the range of the human voice. So funny enough, if you put this on a guitar track, you kind of get what sounds like a demon talking because like the guitar kind of crosses over certain frequencies with the human voice. So it thinks it's trying to pull speech out of a guitar track, which is kind of cool. So if you're a sound designer and you want to make a terrifying, like sounding like, alien or creature talking, play some guitar and throw dialogue isolate on that, and it's just going to sound haunting. What was the other online question besides forensics? I forget.
Forensics and restoring historical recordings.
Okay, so restoring historical recordings, that could go musically or with dialogue. I don't know too much on we usually don't get too much on the dialogue side. I do know the National Archives and some offices of the Smithsonian, I think, use our software. I have gotten 1 or 2 emails from them before. I'm not sure to what capacity they're using it as, though. I did help 60 Minutes once with an old orchestral recording where they wanted to just remove some of the noise and hum and stuff. So like kind of what I showed earlier, some of the basic tools like dehum and declick and depop, those are used a lot on, I'd say, the old recordings because they just want to get those pops and clicks from the tape and the vinyl and stuff out of the recording in general. But yeah, I don't have any super old recordings to bring with me today, but a good one to play with if you do want to test it yourself is, I can't remember if it is through the National Archives. There is a website where you can get like all these famous speeches for free, whether it's like the Kennedy speech or Winston Churchill. There is like an archive website where they have all these public domain speeches where you can actually download them and then play with RX and try to clean them up. Cool. Do we have any other questions or?
Do you think we could switch gears back to like VocalSynth for a second?
Yeah.
And show,
let me open up Pro Tools.
I wanted to see how it could be used as like a traditional vocoder with like a keyboard input and.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have a keyboard, but we can. Yeah, I won't be able to show MIDI mode very well today. I apologize for that, but we can dive through the auto modes and like build a patch if you want, and like go through the settings. Yeah, make some cool noises.
Fun.
All right, let's see what we have here.
Once up, I done sold 'em, I'm ready. Baby, strap on your seatbelt. I've been at work doing that dirt. I'm about to puff on that air. Since high school life got
Cool. So
you
do you want to start from scratch? Do you want us like wipe the slate and just dive in? Cool. Let's do it. So let's go to, well, since, again, I apologize, I don't have a MIDI controller, but let's go to our auto mode here, and let's go into the classic sounds. So I'm going to pick this to start for our vocoder. And then we can open up the settings here. So let's take a look at what this is doing. So we have a square wave on oscillator 1 and nothing on 2. I usually like to blend two different things, you know, like maybe like a triangle and like a saw wave. A little more intelligibility there. And let's go into pitch, and let's make one an octave up. So now we have an octave above and below. And let's say we don't want it, maybe we don't want it super filtered. We can adjust the filter. Maybe we just want the high end. We can add noise if we want, but we don't necessarily have to. And these are some different presets in here. Let's go in. We'll shape it a little bit. And then we can add some volume band automation there. And then we have some different changes to the algorithm up here as well. You know, you can get like change the pitch down there. And then again, we can change like what's blended with it. So let's maybe bring in like BioVox. It's fun. That's a fun tool. So this can add like breathy sounds. You know, we can add like noise here. So now we blend. And again, it sounds good when you have like that context where you blend the two vocals together. So we go back. So now you hear like that vocoder sound under there. Yeah, I wish I had the keyboard. So yeah, in MIDI mode, you can have, I think, up to like 6 voices with you. So you can hold down a chord and get that classic like, you know, vocoder sound. So yeah, I apologize I don't have that for this demonstration, but maybe a future one we'll remember to bring a keyboard. But it is fun, and it's fun especially when you're like hanging out with like friends and you have the microphone and you do it in like real time, you know, and you can sit there and do it. I don't always recommend recording that way though, just because of latency and just CPU. Sometimes you want to make sure that while it can be done live, it's usually best to record your vocals dry anyway, so you always have the dry stems, and then do what I did here, just duplicate your dry stem and add the VocalSynth later. And then if you want to play along the MIDI in real time, that's usually easier, so that your vocal's already done. This way you're not trying to sing and figure out cool, like, you know, jazz harmonies to add to your vocoder in real time, and yeah. But no, VocalSynth is a lot of fun. It's probably, I don't use it enough as a creative tool before, but then when I started working at Isotope, now I kind of layer it in everywhere. In the sidechain mode, it's often good to add to like a guitar or bass sometimes as well, where you use kind of like with a send and return, send a little bit of the signal via the sidechain to VocalSynth. So when you hit that guitar, there's some like extra low, especially like you said with the vocoder, dial it down, make it like super low. So now it sounds like your guitar is playing through like a sub-octave pedal or something. And yeah, just adds so much. Cool. Any other questions? No? Cool. I guess we'll wrap it up then. Yeah?
We want to thank Dom Delore for his time flying all the way down here from Boston, where Isotope is located. So if, as a student, if you want to get 50% off of any Isotope product, just go to isotope.com, and I think it's /education.
Academic, I think.
Academics,
Or
there we go. 50%
yeah.
off is amazing. You get these great tools, which I use every day in my studio, and they're absolutely fantastic. And thanks again to Dom DeLore for coming down here. And
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I also have, what do you call it? I have a bunch of stickers with me from the company. If anyone wants Isotope stickers, I have a bunch with me. So if you want to stick around, and I can give those out to you. You can paste them wherever you want. Put them on your laptop, put on your guitar. But thanks for having me.